up guys, Inevitable Tech here. The 2019 iPad is one of the cheapest Apple products with a price of only $379. So in 2019, the iPad saw a lot of upgrades, like a bigger screen, more RAM, but for me personally, only two upgrades really mattered. The first one is the addition of the new Smart Connector for the Folio keyboard. We have seen the Smart Connector making its way through other devices like the iPad Pro. And as ridiculously expensive as this not even great keyboard is, it does really make a difference. Without the keyboard, it's good for playing games, watching Netflix or YouTube. But if you want to get any real work done, then you most probably should use a keyboard. And even if it doesn't really make sense that Apple is charging $170 for an iPad that only costs 370 euros, I guess that's just Apple. The iPad still uses the first generation Apple Pencil, which has a huge design flaw when charging it, but we all know that, and they still charge $100, which is really insane. But when you combine all of them, the iPad, the keyboard, and the pencil, you get pretty close to the feeling you would have with an iPad Pro. But the crazy thing is, the iPad can pretty much handle anything the iPad Pro can handle at just about a third of the price. Now yes, some things of course are a little slower on the iPad 7th Gen than the iPad Pro, but it doesn't really make a world of a difference. You could even do some light gaming on it now that it includes support for the Xbox and PlayStation controllers. And this is possible due to the second upgrade, iPadOS. Now I know I have talked about this in my iPad Pro video, but holy moly, it makes a huge difference. And if you combine this tiny device with iPadOS and you're able to use desktop versions of browsers and Gmail, it makes a huge difference. And there is support for some external devices, but it's a little more tricky since it still uses the Lightning USB port, unlike the iPad Pro. Now there certainly still are some caveats. For example, the 2 to 3 gigs of RAM are okay, but they're certainly nothing special, and you still run into problems with browsers when you have several tabs open. The general performance on the iPad is okay, but I would have liked a little more power. It uses the A10 chip, which is surprisingly capable since it is the same one which was used in the iPhone 7, but it would have been really cool if they would have used the A12 or even the A12X chip. And moving on to the design, it's still the old one, nothing new there. It also still uses fingerprint ID. It would have been really cool if it had Face ID since it's a lot faster, but it's not a big deal. And it also still has a headphone jack, which is really cool since they're getting more and more scarce around here. Now moving on to the cameras. The one on the back is fine. It's a typical 8 megapixel 1080p camera, but the one on the front is borderline usable. It's a 1.2 megapixel 720p one, so it's just about usable for FaceTime. Ever since the first generation of the iPad Pro came out, it's been trying to replace our laptops. Now besides the awesome form factor, which you just cannot beat, the all-day battery life and the beautiful screen, I'm just not ready yet to replace my laptop with an iPad like this. Especially when it comes to tasks like photo editing or video editing. But at 370 euros, you just cannot go wrong with this product. And if I would have to choose between this and the iPad Pro, I would go with the iPad 7th Gen.